The wind howled through the pines of the Colorado Rockies, carrying the scent of snow and cedar. Elias Kane, a bearded mountain man in his late 30s, hauled a bundle of pelts toward his cabin, his boots crunching on frost. He'd lived alone for a decade, trading furs in the valley town of Blackthorn, his past a shadow he'd left behind. Once a boy in a bustling Kansas village, he'd fled west after loss, his parents to illness, his heart to solitude. Blackthorn's folk respected his silence, calling him the Mountain Man, a title that suited his grizzled frame and guarded eyes. Today the town was abuzz with a wedding, the saloon decked in ribbons for a merchant's daughter. Elias cared little for such things, but he needed supplies, so he trudged into Blackthorn, his mule laden with furs. The streets were alive with laughter, music spilling from the saloon. He tied his mule, avoiding the crowd, when a voice stopped him cold, a woman's, soft but piercing. "Do you recognize me, Mountain Man?" He turned, and there she stood, a bride in white, her veil lifted, her face radiant, yet hauntingly familiar. Her eyes, blue as the summer sky he'd forgotten, held him fast. "I was your childhood neighbor," she said, her smile trembling. Elias's breath caught. Memories flooded, running through Kansas fields, a girl with pigtails, laughter under stars. "Clara?" he whispered, his voice rough as gravel. She nodded, but her eyes held more than nostalgia. Fear, maybe, or a secret. The crowd parted. Around them, oblivious to the weight of this reunion. Elias's heart, long buried, stirred. Clara, his first friend, now a bride, stood before him. But why here, why now? And why did her gaze flicker toward the saloon, where her groom waited? Elias stood rooted, the bustle of Blackthorn fading as Clara's presence consumed him. She was no longer the freckled girl who'd shared his childhood secrets, but a woman, her beauty sharpened by time, her wedding dress a stark contrast to his worn leather coat. "It's been 20 years, Elias," she said, stepping closer, her voice low to avoid the crowd's ears. "I never thought I'd find you." His mind raced. Clara, the neighbor who'd vanished after his family died, her own parents moving east. He'd heard whispers of her father's wealth, but nothing more. "What are you doing here?" he asked, his tone gruffer than he meant. Her smile faltered, and she glanced at the saloon, where a man in a fine suit, her groom, Elias, laughed with guests. "I'm marrying Thomas Reed," she said, but her voice lacked joy. Elias's gut twisted. Reed was Blackthorn's richest merchant, a man with charm and a reputation for ruthlessness. Clara's eyes darted to Elias's, a plea in them. "I need to talk to you. Alone." He hesitated, his solitary life clashing with the pull of her gaze. The town square wasn't the place. Too many eyes, too many ears. He nodded toward the livery stable, a quiet corner away from the wedding's chaos. She followed, her dress trailing dust, an odd sight beside his rugged frame. In the stable's shadow, she spoke fast. "I found you through a trapper's tale. Elias Kane, the Mountain Man. I had to come." Her hands twisted her veil, betraying nerves. "Thomas, he's not what he seems." Elias's jaw tightened. He didn't know Reed well, but he'd heard of debts called in, men disappearing. "What's he done?" he asked. Clara's voice dropped to a whisper. "He's holding something over me, something from our past." Elias's heart thudded. Their past? The Kansas days were a blur, but Clara's fear was real. A shout from the saloon broke the moment, Reed calling her name. She flinched, then squeezed Elias's hand. "Help me," she whispered before slipping back to the crowd. Elias stood, the stable's musty air heavy, his solitude cracking. The wedding music faded as Elias retreated to his mule, Clara's words echoing. "Something from our past." He hadn't thought of Kansas in years, but her face brought it. All back, fields of wheat, Her laugh, a promise they'd made as children to always protect each other. He'd failed that promise when he ran west, burying his grief in the mountains. Now Clara was here, a bride in trouble, and he couldn't turn away. He led his mule to the general store, bartering pelts for flour and salt, his eyes scanning the crowd. Reed stood tall in the saloon doorway, his smile polished but his eyes cold, watching Clara as she mingled with guests. Elias didn't trust him. He'd seen men like Reed, power-hungry, hiding secrets behind wealth. As he loaded his supplies, a boy tugged his sleeve, Jimmy, the storekeeper's son. "Miss Clara was asking about you yesterday," he whispered. "Said you were a friend from long ago." Elias's pulse quickened. She'd been searching for him before the wedding. Why? He thanked Jimmy and headed to the livery stable, needing time to think. Clara's plea gnawed at him, her fear, her mention of the past. He remembered a night in Kansas, a fire in her family's barn, whispers of theft. Had it followed her? Here. He sat on a hay bale, the carved knife he always carried, a gift from Clara's father, heavy in his hand. The stable door creaked, and Clara slipped inside, her veil gone, her face pale. "Thomas is watching me," she said, breathless. "He knows I came to you." Elias stood, his height looming but his voice soft. "What's he got on you, Clara?" She hesitated, then spoke. "My father. He stole from a bank before we left Kansas. Thomas knows, and he's using it to control me." Elias's blood ran cold. Blackmail. Reed wasn't just a groom, he was a predator. A shout outside, Reed's voice again. Clara grabbed Elias's arm. "Meet me tonight, at the old oak by the creek." Before he could answer, she was gone, leaving him with a choice: walk away or step back into a past he'd fled. Dusk settled over Blackthorn, the wedding festivities spilling into the night with fiddle music and laughter. Elias rode his mule toward his cabin, the mountains looming like silent guardians. Clara's words churned in his mind, her father's crime, Reed's blackmail. He remembered her father, a kind man who'd taught him to whittle, but also a man with shadows in his eyes. Had theft driven their family east? Elias didn't know, but Clara's fear was a call he couldn't ignore. He bypassed his cabin, heading for the creek where the old oak stood, its gnarled branches a landmark from his early days in Blackthorn. The night was cold, the stars sharp as knives. He tied his mule and waited, his rifle across his lap, the carved knife in his pocket a tether to Clara's past. Hoofbeats broke the silence, and Clara appeared, no longer in her wedding dress but a simple cloak, her face ghostly in the moonlight. "I slipped away," she whispered, dismounting. "Thomas thinks I'm with the women." Elias studied her, seeing the girl he'd known in her trembling hands, but also a woman hardened by secrets. "Tell me everything," he said. She nodded, sitting on a fallen log. Her father had robbed a bank to save their farm, she said, but was caught. He'd paid his debt, but Reed, a business partner, had proof, a ledger, and threatened to expose it, ruining Clara's name. "He wants my inheritance," she said, voice bitter. "And me?" Elias's fists clenched. Reed's charm hid a snake's heart. "Why me?" Elias asked. Clara's eyes softened. "You were always brave, Elias. I knew you'd help." Her trust stirred him, but danger loomed. A twig snapped nearby, and Elias raised his rifle. Clara froze, her hand on his arm. "It's probably nothing," she whispered, but her eyes betrayed fear. Elias scanned the dark, his senses sharp. Reed wasn't a man to let his prize slip away. The night felt alive, watching, waiting. The creek's murmur masked smaller sounds, but Elias's years in the mountains had honed his instincts. He pulled. Clara behind the oak, his rifle ready. "Stay low," he whispered. She nodded, her breath quick but her eyes steady. A shadow moved among the pines. A man, too deliberate to be a stray hunter. Elias's grip tightened, his past as a boy protecting Clara resurfacing. "It's one of Reed's men," Clara whispered, recognizing the figure's gait. Elias cursed silently. Reed was no fool. He'd set a watch on her. The man crept closer, a pistol glinting in his hand. Elias weighed his options: shoot and draw attention, or wait and risk discovery. Clara's hand squeezed his, a silent plea to avoid blood. He nodded, lowering his rifle but keeping his knife ready. The man paused, scanning the creek, then turned back, muttering. Elias exhaled as the shadow retreated, but the danger wasn't gone. "We can't stay here," he told Clara. "Reed's got eyes everywhere." She agreed, her face set. "There's a cave, a mile up the ridge. I found it as a girl, exploring." Elias raised an eyebrow. "Clara, exploring mountains?" She smiled faintly. "I wasn't always a lady." They mounted, riding quietly, the oak fading behind them. The cave was hidden by boulders, its mouth barely visible. Inside it was dry, the air cool and still. Elias lit a small fire, its glow dancing on Clara's face. "What's your plan?" he asked. She pulled a locket from her cloak, opening it to reveal a tiny key. "This opens a box in Blackthorn's bank. My father's ledger is there, the real one, proving he paid his debt. If I get it, Reed has nothing." Elias admired her cunning, but saw the risk. "Reed won't let you near that bank." Clara's eyes met his, fierce. "Then we take it." Elias felt the weight of her trust, her fire rekindling his own. The cave felt like a sanctuary, but the world outside was closing in. The fire crackled, casting shadows in the cave as Elias and Clara planned. She explained Reed's hold. His wealth came from shady deals, and her inheritance was his latest prize. The ledger would free her, proving her father's innocence and